Howdy once again everyone, and I have some great news for owners of Nikon Z system cameras, which is that yet another 85mm Viltrox lens is hitting the system. This time it's the turn of their more expensive portrait lens, the AF 85mm f1.4 Pro. This lens tested pretty nicely over on Sony E-mount, so I'm really glad to see it now on Z-mount too. Its prices are very reasonable, £569 here in the UK, €669, or about $598 US. I'd like to thank Viltrox very much for sending me this lens for testing, although as usual this is a totally independent review. They've had no input into the video at all. And this is going to be a shorter review than usual as, of course, I've already looked at this lens's optics very thoroughly. You can find a link to my full review in the description below. Today I want to check how well it performs on Nikon cameras by checking its functionality and autofocus and testing how well the optics do on the 45 megapixel sensor of my Z7 camera. I haven't reused any sample images here though. Everything is fresh out of my Nikon camera for this video. I gave it a real run for its money. The build quality is the same as it was before on Sony E-mount, which is a very good thing. It's pretty big, as you can see. Fair enough though, considering that maximum aperture. Its build quality looks and feels exceptional. The lens's body is made of metal with a lovely smooth finish to it. It's based on a metal lens mount with weather sealing around the edge for extra protection. There's also a USB-C port embedded in that mount for future firmware updates. All that metal makes the lens rather heavy though. It weighs 800 grams or just under 2 pounds. As you upturn the lens, you can hear and feel glass elements gently bumping around inside, something which I don't really like much, but in all fairness, that's actually becoming pretty normal these days for these bigger lenses, and that's how it was on the Sony E-mount version as well. It's not a fault, it's just its design. At the rear we find an aperture control ring which clicks nice and firmly at every third of an f-stop. It can also be set to turn smoothly, which can be useful for video makers. It cannot be locked in or out of A or camera controlled mode, but the click to get it in and out is pretty firm, so it shouldn't be much of a problem. Then we get an auto manual focus switch and a customizable focus hold button, and then comes a metallic manual focus ring, which turns lovely and smoothly. The lens's autofocus motor works silently and accurately. On the Sony E-mount, the autofocus was reasonably fast. On my Nikon camera though, it was noticeably slower, whether shooting in single shot or continuous autofocus modes. I know I'm using an older Nikon Z7 camera here, but the camera's capable of much faster autofocus than this. However, subject tracking and everything else worked fine, so this lens should be happy with anything except for sports photography or anything else that's really fast-paced. The lens has a 77mm filter thread size and it does not feature image stabilization. It comes with a fairly deep plastic hood. Overall, the lens's build quality is very lovely here. Even though it's a little on the heavy side, everything's working fine, although the autofocus seems slower than the Sony E-mount version. So let's check out the image quality of this thing on my Nikon Z7 with its full frame 45 megapixel sensor. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. Straight from f1.4, the lens's image quality looks very good in the middle of the picture. There's good resolution and contrast to be seen here. Stop down to f2 though if you want the very sharpest possible image quality. Anyway, back to f1.4 and let's take a look in the image corners. At f1.4 the image is hazier in terms of contrast, but there's still a decently clear image. At f2 there's more brightness and a touch of extra sharpness right in the very edges. f2.8 and f4 see further improvement, and at f5.6 we see perfect sharpness from corner to corner. The lens stays this sharp down to f11. Stop down any further and softness will creep in due to diffraction. So the image quality is still very good here considering the lens's price. You can get even sharper 85mm lenses than this, but obviously they'll cost a lot more. The lens's minimum focus distance is 79 centimeters, just a tiny bit closer than average for a portrait lens like this. At f1.4, sharpness is still there, but unfortunately contrast bottoms out, and we see some clear blue colour fringing. Stop down to f2 for only a small improvement in contrast, but at f2.8 that colour fringing clears up, and we get perfect image quality again. So if you're shooting up close, stop down. And how does that longitudinal chromatic aberration look when you're shooting at 45 megapixels? It's hard to see at f1.4 due to that soft close-up image quality, but stop down to f2 and there's evidence of it. At f2.8 there's still a tiny bit of it there, but at f4 it's finally gone. As for work against bright light, distortion and vignetting, out-of-focus background quality, focus breathing, well, as you'd expect, it's all the same as on the Sony version of the lens. You can find out about all those things in my full review. There's a link in the description below, as I mentioned. So, everything seems to be in order. Nikon Z users really are lucky compared to Canon shooters. There are way more full-frame, third-party lenses available to them, which are much more affordable than first-party options, and this bright portrait lens still comes recommended for its low price and very good quality.